Sometimes the most unforgettable thing you can do is nothing at all. Not the angry texts, not the explanations, not the tears you wish he'd understand, just peace. Because when you walk away without bitterness, without needing to prove your worth, you become unforgettable for all the right reasons. You stop being the chaos in his story and become the calm he'll never find again. The most powerful move you can ever make after someone hurts you isn't revenge, it's peace. Most people think strength looks like moving on fast, showing you're unbothered, or proving that you're doing better without them. But real strength isn't loud, it's quiet, it's calm. It's that moment when you stop needing to convince anyone of your worth, and instead, you start living in a way that naturally shows it. When you choose peace, you're not pretending you don't care. You're choosing not to let their actions dictate your emotional world anymore. There's something deeply unsettling to someone when they expect a reaction and don't get one. They expect anger, tears, or confrontation, because that's what validates them. It shows they still have access to your emotions. But when you respond with peace, you take that power back. You're saying, without saying it, you don't get to control how I feel anymore. That's not detachment out of coldness, it's detachment out of self-respect. You've simply reached the point where your peace matters more than being right, being heard, or being chosen. Most people confuse revenge with closure. They think, if I make him see what he lost, then I'll feel better. But revenge keeps you tied to the very thing you're trying to move on from. It keeps your focus on him, what he's thinking, what he's doing, whether he regrets it. Peace shifts the focus back to you. It's a quiet declaration that says, I'm not chasing what hurt me anymore. And that choice, the choice to stop running after something that doesn't feed your soul, is what truly sets you free. When you walk away peacefully, you're not saying what happened didn't matter. You're saying, I've accepted that it did, but I won't let it define who I am. You begin to understand that not every battle needs to be fought, not every story needs to end with understanding, and not every goodbye needs to be explained. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply stop engaging, because peace doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't chase, it doesn't shout, it just is, and that kind of energy is magnetic. A calm woman is unforgettable. Because peace is rare, in a world where everyone is reacting, over-explaining, or trying to win emotional tug-of-wars, your peace becomes your power. It shows maturity, confidence, and a level of emotional control that few people have. When you walk away peacefully, he may not understand it immediately, but he'll feel it. He'll notice the space where your energy used to be, and that silence will echo louder than any words you could have said. What he'll remember isn't how much you care, it's how gracefully you let go, how you didn't let your emotions turn you into someone you're not, how you chose dignity over drama, because peace doesn't scream, I don't care. It whispers, I care about myself too much to stay in chaos. And that realization hits differently when the noise fades. In time, he might forget your words, your arguments, even your reasons for leaving. But he'll never forget the calmness in your exit, the way you didn't seek closure from him, but found it within yourself. That peace will linger in his memory long after the emotions settle, because it's the kind of strength people don't often encounter, and once they do, they never forget it. Your peace becomes the mirror that shows him the difference between someone who reacts and someone who's evolved. And that's what truly haunts him, not your anger, not your absence, but the way you left everything behind without needing to win. Because in walking away peacefully, you already did. Silence has a language of its own, and it speaks far louder than any goodbye ever could. When someone hurts you, there's often a strong temptation to explain yourself one last time, to make them understand how deeply their actions affected you. You want to leave knowing they finally see your heart, that they finally understand what they lost. But most of the time, those explanations fall on deaf ears. The person who didn't value your words when they had you won't suddenly understand them when you're walking away. That's why silence becomes your most powerful statement. It's not cold, it's not cruel, it's closure in its purest form. When you choose silence, you stop feeding the cycle of confusion, blame, and emotional tug-of-war. You stop giving them access to your energy. You're no longer playing the part of the person who explains, defends, or tries to fix what someone else broke. Silence says, I'm done explaining myself to people who are never listening. It's an act of self-preservation. It's the moment you realize that walking away without noise doesn't make your feelings any less real. It just means you've reached a level of self-respect where peace matters more than being understood. The beauty of silence is that it gives space for truth to echo. After you leave, when the texts stop, when the calls go unanswered, when your energy is no longer there to fill the gaps in their life, suddenly your absence becomes loud. People often don't realize what you brought to their life until it's no longer accessible. The calm presence, the reassurance, the effort. They start to see it in hindsight. That's when your silence begins to speak. Every quiet moment they spend wondering why you're not reaching out is a reflection of the noise they created while you were still there. Silence also reclaims your dignity, because every time you argue or plead to be seen, you hand someone the power to validate you. And when that validation doesn't come, it drains you. But when you decide to stay silent, you send a message that says, I don't need your response to move on. That message carries weight because most people expect drama, they expect confrontation, they expect emotional reactions they can feed off. When you deny them that, you take back control of the narrative. You shift from being reactive to being centered. In that silence, something powerful happens. You start hearing yourself again. The noise of trying to make someone understand you fades, and suddenly you begin to understand yourself instead. You see the patterns, the lessons, the truth of what you accepted for far too long. Silence becomes your healing space. It's not about shutting the world out. It's about letting your inner voice become louder than the noise around you. And what makes silence unforgettable is that it lingers. Long after the arguments end, long after the emotions settle, your calm absence becomes a constant reminder. He'll think of moments when you could have lashed out but didn't, when you could have tried to fix things but chose peace instead. That quiet grace leaves an imprint because it shows a kind of maturity and restraint that many never master. It shows that you were never seeking to win, you were seeking to heal. In the end, silence is not the absence of words, it's the presence of self-worth. It's what happens when you no longer need to explain who you are to someone who couldn't see it. You let your actions, your absence, and your peace do the talking. And that silence, steady, powerful, and full of self-respect, is the one thing he'll never forget, because it's not just that you walked away. It's how you did it, with a quiet strength that speaks louder than anything you could have said. There's a reason why a calm woman is unforgettable. It's not because she doesn't feel deeply or because she's detached from her emotions. It's because she's mastered them. She doesn't let her pain turn her into someone unrecognizable. She doesn't meet disrespect with chaos or match immaturity with anger. She chooses to rise above it, and that choice, that grace, is what sets her apart. Most people remember the noise others create, but the calm ones, the ones who move through heartbreak with quiet dignity, are the ones who leave the deepest mark. Men forget the ones who begged, who fought for closure, who lost themselves trying to be enough. But they never forget the woman who remained kind even while she was breaking. The one who didn't use her pain as a weapon. The one who could have humiliated him, but chose silence. That kind of composure doesn't come from pride, it comes from strength. Because peace in the middle of heartbreak isn't natural. It's something you earn after you've cried enough, questioned enough, and finally realized that you can't control someone else's choices. You can only control your response to them. When a woman chooses calm over chaos, she's showing emotional maturity most people never reach. It's not about pretending everything's okay. It's about saying, I refuse to lose myself in the process of losing you. She doesn't need to prove that she cared, because her effort already did that. She doesn't need to prove that she's hurting, because her absence says it all. That kind of woman doesn't leave bitterness behind. She leaves a lesson. And that lesson stays long after she's gone. What makes her unforgettable isn't the love she gave, it's the way she handled its ending. The grace in her silence, the patience in her withdrawal, the refusal to let pain make her cruel, because that calmness confuses people who expected drama. It exposes the difference between someone who reacts out of ego and someone who acts out of self-respect. When you meet someone who carries peace even in heartbreak, you don't forget them. You remember them as the one who didn't let you steal their light. A calm woman isn't emotionless, she's centered. She feels everything, but she doesn't let those feelings dictate her behavior. She knows that losing someone isn't the same as losing herself, and that awareness gives her a kind of quiet confidence that lingers. Long after the relationship ends, long after the messages stop, he'll remember how she handled herself. He'll remember the warmth she brought, the softness she maintained even when things fell apart, because grace in goodbye is rare, and rarity is unforgettable. The world teaches people to shout their worth, to prove it through words, through status, through reactions. But a calm woman doesn't need to. Her peace shows it. When she walks away, she doesn't slam the door. She just leaves, gently, knowing that her energy speaks louder than anything she could say. That moment stays imprinted in his mind because he realizes that he didn't just lose her presence. He lost the tranquility she carried into his life. And the irony is, the calm woman often goes unnoticed while she's there. Her steadiness feels easy to take for granted. But once she's gone, that same peace becomes the very thing he misses most, because you can replace excitement, attention, even affection, but you can't replace peace. You can't forget someone who brought stillness into your chaos. That's why when she walks away with grace instead of anger, she becomes unforgettable not because she left a wound, but because she left warmth. And when life gets loud again, when regret creeps in, he'll remember her calmness as the rarest thing he ever lost. Detachment is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. People often mistake it for indifference, as if you've stopped caring altogether. But real detachment isn't about not feeling. It's about feeling everything and still choosing peace. It's what happens when you've given enough chances, spoken your truth, and finally realized that holding on doesn't change what's meant to leave. Detachment is born from clarity, not coldness. It's that quiet understanding that says, I love you, but I love myself enough to let you go. When you reach that point, something inside you shifts. You stop checking your phone, you stop replaying the conversations in your head, and you stop trying to decode mixed signals. You realize that peace doesn't come from fixing the situation. It comes from releasing it. That's the moment when your energy returns to you, piece by piece. The same energy you spent trying to be understood, trying to keep someone's interest, trying to make them choose you, it starts flowing back into your own life. That's the power of detachment. It's not the absence of care, it's the redirection of it. The truth is, detachment doesn't happen overnight. It's not a switch you flip. It's a process, a gradual reclaiming of your power. At first, you still want to reach out. You still want to explain. You still want closure. But then one day you wake up and the urge isn't as strong. You stop needing to be heard because you finally hear yourself. You stop craving answers because you understand that silence was the answer. That's when detachment takes root, not because you stopped feeling, but because you stopped resisting what's real. When you detach, you create space for perspective. You start seeing things clearly without the fog of emotion. You realize that the version of the person you loved may have existed only in your hope, not in reality. You see how much you overextended yourself trying to make things work, and that realization doesn't break you, it frees you. You begin to understand that love shouldn't feel like survival. It shouldn't cost you your peace to keep it alive. So you let go, not out of anger, but out of wisdom. And what's beautiful about detachment is how magnetic it becomes. When you stop chasing, stop explaining, stop reacting, you reclaim your presence. That quiet confidence draws people in, not because you're playing games, but because you're no longer desperate for validation. You radiate self-respect, and that's something people notice even if they don't understand it. For him, it becomes confusing. He'll wonder why you're not responding, why you're no longer seeking his attention. That confusion is his confrontation with your strength. Detachment isn't about building walls. It's about building boundaries. It's about knowing what deserves your emotional investment and what doesn't. You still have love in your heart, but you refuse to give it where it isn't reciprocated. That's not selfishness, that's self-preservation. You can care deeply and still walk away. You can wish someone well and still never look back. That's what makes detachment powerful. It allows you to move on with peace instead of bitterness. In time, detachment becomes your healing. It's the space where you rediscover who you are without the weight of someone else's indecision. It's where you stop asking, "Why didn't he see my worth?" and start saying, "I see it now." And ironically, that's what makes you unforgettable. Because when you detach with grace, you show a kind of emotional strength that most people don't possess. You show that love doesn't have to be loud to be real, and that letting go can sometimes be the most loving thing you ever do, both for him and for yourself. There will come a moment when life catches up to him, when the noise of everything he thought he wanted becomes overwhelming. The late nights, the distractions, the temporary highs, they'll start to lose their flavor, and in that quiet moment, when the chaos around him feels empty, his mind will wander back to you. Not because of the things you did, but because of the energy you carried. He'll remember the calm, the softness, the safety, the way you brought peace into moments that didn't deserve it. And that memory will hit him in a way he won't expect, because peace, once experienced, is not something you forget easily. At first, he might not notice the absence. He might mistake your silence for indifference. He might even think he's moved on. But peace has a strange way of making its presence felt through its absence. When someone's used to your grounded energy, when they've leaned on your emotional balance without realizing it, the contrast becomes clear once you're gone. Suddenly, the noise of the world feels louder, the drama of others feels heavier, and the peace you once brought begins to feel irreplaceable. He'll remember how you handled conflict, not by shouting, not by tearing him down, but by communicating with grace. He'll remember how you listened, not to reply, but to understand. He'll remember that you didn't need to control him to feel secure. You trusted him to show up, and when he didn't, you simply stopped asking. That kind of calm strength leaves a mark because it's rare. Most people are quick to anger or to blame, but the one who stays composed, who stays kind even when things fall apart, that's the one that lingers in memory long after attraction fades. And what haunts him most isn't just the memory of you, it's the way you made him feel about himself when he was with you. You made him feel grounded, seen, understood. That kind of connection is hard to replicate because it's not built on excitement, it's built on peace. And the irony is, many men don't realize the value of peace until they lose it. They chase stimulation only to find themselves craving stability. They look for validation only to miss authenticity. And when the noise around them gets too loud, your absence becomes the quiet he yearns for. Peace has a memory. It lingers in the soul. It shows up when he's with someone new who doesn't understand him the way you did. It shows up in moments of silence, when he wishes he could talk to someone who made him feel safe. It shows up in the simple things, the sound of your laugh, the calm in your voice, the way your presence never demanded, only gave. Those memories don't fade, they grow louder in his mind as time passes. Because the truth is, peace is not something people find easily, it's something they feel lucky to have known, even if only once. What's even more powerful is that your peace continues to grow even after you've left. You evolve, you heal. You build a life that doesn't revolve around what was lost. You become the version of yourself that your pain prepared you for. And that version of you, the grounded, radiant, self-assured one, becomes even more unforgettable, because while he's revisiting memories, you're creating a new chapter that doesn't need him. That's the quiet power of peace. It not only stays in his memory, it propels you forward into a life that's even more fulfilling. So, when life humbles him and he's surrounded by chaos, he'll remember you not with bitterness, but with a kind of ache that whispers, "I didn't know what I had." And while he's learning that lesson, you'll be long gone, living in the freedom that your peace created. Because peace isn't just what he'll remember, it's what you'll carry with you long after he fades into the background. Walking away in peace is not something you do to make him realize your worth. It's something you do because you finally realize it yourself. It's not about creating regret in him, it's about creating freedom in you. For so long, you might have been focused on what he thought, how he felt, whether he missed you, or if he'd ever come back. But true peace comes when you stop walking away to be remembered and start walking away to be restored. It's the shift from proving your value to protecting your energy. When you walk away in peace, you're not making a statement for him, you're making a commitment to yourself. There's a quiet power in deciding that your healing matters more than your history. You stop needing to explain why you're leaving, because you know deep down that no explanation could make someone value you if they haven't already. You stop trying to make them understand your pain, because you've accepted that they might not have the capacity to. And that acceptance, that surrender is peace. It's not giving up. It's choosing to stop fighting for something that only breaks you. You finally understand that your peace is not negotiable, and anyone who disturbs it doesn't belong in your life, no matter how much you love them. When you walk away in peace, you're not erasing the love that once existed. You're simply acknowledging that love alone isn't enough without effort, respect, and consistency. You're saying, "I can love you, and still know that I deserve better than confusion." That level of emotional clarity is what most people never reach, because it requires you to prioritize your own well-being over your emotional attachment. And that's not selfish, it's mature, because love shouldn't hurt. It shouldn't leave you anxious or questioning your worth. When it does, walking away becomes an act of self-love. He might not understand it at first. He might think your peace is indifference or that you've stopped caring. But the truth is, peace is what you find when you've cared too much for too long. It's what's left after you've tried everything and finally realized that staying only keeps you stuck. And even though it may not look powerful from the outside, it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do. To walk away without resentment, to wish someone well without wanting them back, that's strength in its purest form. Ironically, when you walk away in peace, that's when the lesson truly reaches him. Not because you intended to teach it, but because your absence carries weight. Your calm becomes his reminder of what he lost. A woman who could have chosen anger, but chose grace instead. And that realization doesn't come quickly. It hits him when the noise fades, when the excitement wears off, when he realizes that peace like yours is rare. But by then, you're no longer waiting for that moment. You've moved on. You've chosen yourself. Peace isn't just the end of a relationship. It's the beginning of your return to yourself. It's the space where you rebuild your confidence, rediscover your joy, and reconnect with your own strength. It's where you stop living in reaction to someone else and start living in alignment with yourself. And that, more than anything, is what makes your peace unforgettable. Because when a woman walks away not to be missed, but to be whole again, she becomes something he'll never forget, not because she left him behind, but because she finally came back to herself. Peace is the moment you stop trying to prove your worth and start protecting it. It's when you no longer need closure, validation, or revenge, because you've found something far greater, yourself. When you walk away in peace, you don't leave to make him remember you, you leave to remember who you are. And that calm, that grace, that quiet strength, that's what he'll never forget.